Hi guys, Black is here, and I want to tell you all some old propane stories. Now, 16 years ago, before I came to work for the company I work for now, I used to deliver propane tanks to the company I work for now. I also used to deliver propane tanks to a bunch of other companies, and I did this, we'll just say 5 years. If you want to be exact, it was 4 years 10 months when I got fired. Why did I get fired? Long story short, the manager, I went to tell on the manager and he found out about it and he fired me and said I threatened to beat him up. I kid you not. Now, getting back to this propane story. Now, you know how people ask me all the time, Black, why don't you ever agree with everybody else? Why you always got to say something different from what everybody else say? The reason is this. I like to think that I'm pretty smart. Now, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but stupid people like to believe what everybody else believes because it's easier. Smart people like to find out on their own. And if what they find out is true, they will believe what everybody else believes. If they find out is not true, they're going to believe otherwise. A common example, a damn good example, is Ford lug nuts. People think, everybody think Ford lug nuts just swell over time. If you don't do nothing, they just swell up. Stupid ass people believe that. I believe otherwise. Now, getting back to the propane story. I was trained on how to fix propane tanks. Every driver at my company was trained to fix propane tanks. A lot of them did not like to fix propane tanks because they were afraid of them. I was not afraid of them. If you are afraid of something, you need to learn how it works. And sometimes you'll be less afraid of it, and sometimes you'll be more afraid of it. But it's best to learn how it works, okay? So I learned how to fix propane tanks, and I became extremely good at it. Did I know everything about propane tanks? Probably not, but I knew more than the average person. It was the guy used to fill our propane tanks. He usually filled them in the evening and into the night. We had 5 trucks. He filled all 5 of them by himself. Older black guy named Johnny. Anywho, Johnny used to fill 4 propane tanks at once. All right. Doing so, he would grossly overfill the propane tanks, which really wasn't a big deal. Again, at night when it's cool, he would overfill the tank. So in the next day, when the sun come out, if the tanks were held outside and the sun got on the tank, they would sometime pop off. They have blow-off valves that would relieve pressure when too much pressure build up inside the tank. Some of the valves would pop. You actually hear them pop. Some of the valves would pop and you would hear psst, and some of the valves would just psst and not pop. It just depends on how the valve was or how old the pop-off valve was. So some customers would complain, hey, my tank is leaking. And sometime when we go check it out, the tank is actually leaking, and sometimes the tank will just bleed on pressure. Sometimes, especially during the summertime. Well, anyway, one example, again, Johnny, he filled 4 tanks, and sometimes he would leave the valve open. The actual valve that you turn on to let the propane out, he would forget to close the valve or whatever. He just too busy. And a lot of times he would leave the valve open. Well, whenever I delivered a propane tank, there was a certain way you had to put the propane tank in the cage. You don't just throw the tank in the cage. A lot of drivers did just throw the tank in the cage and leave it. I was told the blow-off valve needs to be pointing straight up. The reason for this, when it blows off pressure, it will blow off a gas and not liquid propane. If the blow-off valve is pointing down, it's going to blow off liquid propane. It could, most of the time it wouldn't, but sometimes it could freeze up. And if it freeze up as it's blowing off the gas, it would freeze up and it wouldn't close back up and it would blow all the fuel out. I've never seen that happen. But they said it could happen, but I've never seen it happen. But still, I still put the tank where the blow-off valve was pointing up. All right. I would also close all the valves because I don't want the customer to, some customers would assume the valve is open, and when they go to hook it up, propane starts shooting out. And most people did not use gloves, and those same people would try to close the damn valve as propane is shooting out. Propane is extremely cold, and it would burn you, which is kind of weird. How does something cold burn you? Freezer burn, I guess. But anyway, Hertz like, actually, I've never gotten hurt because I let go of the damn thing. You know, I let it go. If it shoot out, I will close the valve. If it keeps shooting out, I either go get some gloves or I say, F it. But anyway, customers don't know no better. They stand there and try, it froze my hand. Why didn't you let go? Because it was coming out. Why didn't you let go? You know, sort of kind of like, never mind. You get what I'm saying. But anyway, so here's one example. A customer called and said he had a tank. This customer only had like 2 tanks. One of the tanks were out because he didn't use that much propane, so he had 2 tanks. He would use one tank. When that tank is empty, he would call us and tell us bring propane, and we would come by and fill it up and swap out the tank. Well, the second tank, he went to use it, and the propane would not come out. And he said the valve was jammed. What happened was somebody else, not me, someone else delivered this tank and left the valve open. So when the customer went to put the valve on, he assumed the valve was closed, but it was actually open. So he tried to open it, but it's already open. You turn the valve clockwise to open it. So he tried to turn it, it wouldn't open, so he assumed it was frozen. So then they would go grab vice grips or pliers or whatever, and I would always know this because they would mess up the little knob and it'd be all, sharp and stuff, right? So he tried to turn the valve open, but remember the valve is already open. So when I got there, he had the tank sitting outside. I was in my personal vehicle. I had an extra tank in the trunk of my car, but when I was driving up to the dock, I could see the valve was open because when you turn the valve clockwise, it actually comes up out of the little knob comes up out the valve. So I could see the threads and I saw that it was open. So when I got out of the car, he was like, I need a tank. I need to load some of my truck right quick. Just give me a pair. I said, give me a sec. I went to try to turn it and I couldn't close it because he had used the pliers. And I said, you got some pliers? Oh, no, I don't have any pliers. Come on. Somebody use pliers and I can see where you monkey up the knob. So anyway, they give me some pliers and I closed the valve. He's like, it's jammed up. It's jammed up. It's not jammed up. It's open. And you tried to open it when it's already opening. So now it's jammed up. It wasn't jammed up before. So anyway, I closed the valve, told him to go ahead and put the tank on. And then he's going, where it's jammed up. Just put the damn tank on and shut the hell up. He put it on, the damn thing worked. But that used to happen all the time. I mean, sometimes again, the valve would be left open. And they would pull so hard, they will break the damn valve off. And I have to replace the valve. Speaking of replacing the valve, I just uploaded a video where I was talking about I used to replace the valve while the tank was still full of propane. Everybody thought I was crazy, but I wasn't. Remember, we overfilled the tank to start with. So if it lost a little pressure, it's still overfilled. But anyway, what I used to do was, I think it was a 5.8. It was either 5.8 or 15 mil. I think it was a 5.8. I don't really remember. But anyway, I would take a flathead screwdriver, I would take the little cap off, and then I would take a 5/8 socket, put it on there. Now, this is the funny part. Most bolts, most screws, to take them off, you turn the screw counterclockwise. On a propane tank, to take it off, you turned it clockwise. Well, anyway, I would get a new valve ready for me to install. I would have 2 pairs of gloves on. I would take the socket and wrench. I would take the bolt loose. Like I said, to take it, most bolts to take off, you go counterclockwise. To put on, you go clockwise. With this one, to take off, you go clockwise. Yeah, I know, confusing. But anyway, I would take it off, and when the valve shoot out, it will pop out. Propane will shoot up at the top of it will shoot up pretty high. But after a few seconds, it had a governor that would kick in, and it would cut the blow off down to like 10% flow or 5% flow or something like that. And then I would take the new valve with my gloves, and I would put it into the hole and turn it by hand. Put it in, turn it by hand. And by then, once I get the threads to bite, by then my glove is frozen. So I would then throw the glove. I used to make a show of it. So I would take my glove and throw it down. I would throw it down, and it would scare the hell out of people. And the glove would be laying there smoking, smoking because the propane is frozen the glove and it's evaporating. And then I would take the ratchet and tighten the damn thing up. I'll put the cap back on, put the screw back on, and the tank would still be full of propane, because we overfill the tank. But I used to love to do that. Every customer thought I was crazy. You gonna blow up, you could blow up. But what people don't understand is, first of all, propane does not have a smell. You cannot smell propane. What you smell is spice they put in the propane. To me, it smells like steak season or steak season sauce or whatever. But that's what it smells like to me. That's what you smell. You don't smell propane. People will say, man, that propane giving me a headache. No, it's not the propane that's giving you the headache. It's the spice they put in the propane that's giving you the headache. Again, you cannot smell propane. A lot of people think that propane is as flammable as gasoline. Actually, gasoline is more flammable. Now, just say if this room was closed off and I opened up a propane tank for like maybe 5 seconds, and then I light a match, it probably wouldn't blow up because propane is not that flammable. Now, at the same time, if you took this same room and you put, a cup of gasoline in here and let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then come in and light a match, your ass will probably blow up. But propane is really not that strong. It's just not that strong. But if you heat it up, it's a different story. So just say if you took a propane tank and you dropped it into a big ass fire, and it heated that propane up enough to explode the tank, it would be a pretty good explosion. As a matter of fact, there was a fire, a train turned over that was carrying propane. And it was a fire around this, the big train tank, right? It was a big old fire, and it ruptured that tank. And if you go on YouTube, put in propane, train, tank, fire, explosion, or whatever, they had video of the train tank being thrown, I want to say 100 yards away, but you see it flying through the air. So yeah, if you heat up propane, it's extremely strong. Volatile or whatever. But when it's cold, it's not that strong. It's really not, But anyway, there's other stories. There were, when you hook the propane up to the valve, there were one O-ring and a flat washer. Now, O-ring is just what it sounds like. It's a round rubber seal, right? A flat washer is a squared off round rubber seal. So inside, just say this is the nozzle. Inside the nozzle is the O-ring here, and right here is a flat washer. Well, if that flat washer is missing and the O-ring is bad, the tank is going to leak. If you have a new O-ring and the flat washer is missing, it still might leak, but usually, sometimes it won't. Well, anyway, we had workers who would replace the flat washer, but they never replaced the inside O-ring because it was hard to get to. I used to replace them so much that I got good at them. I mean, it didn't take me 5 seconds to get one out. Hell, it didn't really take that 3 seconds to get one out. Well, a lot of them, I used to hate when I go on vacation because when people would cover my routes, they would put their bad tanks on my route. And when I come back for the next 2 weeks, I'm changing out O-rings because the other drivers would not change their O-ring. They will replace the flat washer. The flat washer is easy to replace, but the O-ring wasn't. I used to hate that. But anyway, I don't want to make a long video, and probably make a long video. But if you have any questions, comments about propane, leave them. That's the reason I hurt my damn back hauling those damn propane tanks. And I actually hurt my back on an empty tank, not a full tank. The tank, when it was full, it was about 53 pounds when it was full. And I think it was like 22 pounds when they were empty. I pulled an empty tank out of a rack, and I didn't lift it up. I pulled it out, and all hell broke loose, man. I thought I was going to die. I was in so much pain. But anyway, it's Dre. Have any questions, comments, please leave them.